So Sunday, I decided to do something incredibly foolish. Sunday, I decided that after I got home from a Father's Day barbecue, and by the way, happy belated Father's Day to all of my subscribers, I decided to go home from that barbecue, sit down on my couch, turn on my Apple TV, tune in to the WWE Network, and as a result, watch Money in the Bank. Now, I knew there was a pay-per-view on Sunday. I didn't really have any interest in watching the pay-per-view on Sunday. I've kind of fallen off of the WWE bandwagon once again, as pretty much everybody else that I know has. So I decided to watch Money in the Bank. I knew there was a pay-per-view, like I said. I didn't really know what the card was. All I knew was that there was a women's Money in the Bank match, a men's Money in the Bank match, and a title match. I didn't know who was in the Money in the Banks. All I knew was those three matches were happening, and then there were going to be some other matches sprinkled in. And, of course, just like every WWE pay-per-view, I regret that decision to tune in to Money in the Bank this past Sunday because, quite frankly, the show was bad. Straight up, as honest as I can say it, Money in the Bank 2017 was bad. And looking at the WWE pay-per-views, there's three, in my opinion, that there's no way on earth WWE can screw up. One of them is Extreme Rules, one of them's TLC, and one of them's Money in the Bank. You can't screw up Extreme Rules because the creativity and all the options you have are endless. Same thing with TLC. You can take shortcuts with those matches, with the matches with all these stipulations, and at TLC, you can take shortcuts with the TLC match, the chairs match, the tables match, the ladders match, whatever. Same thing with Money in the Bank. You can open up with one, you can close the show with one, you can have a mid-card one as well. You can pretty much rely on all of the competitors to carry those matches, and as a result, put on some really damn good matches that steal the show, that make Money in the Bank, the pay-per-view, solid to watch, if not good, if not great. Unfortunately, this year, none of that happened, and as I said before, those three pay-per-views are, you would think, impossible for the WWE to screw up, yet the WWE has managed to screw up an Extreme Rules. They've managed to screw up a TLC, and, of course, they've managed to screw up Money in the Bank. Now, let me address this too. I've been hearing a lot of talk over the past several months, going back to maybe September, October of last year, that SmackDown was the A show, that SmackDown was the better show compared to Raw. Raw has really gone downhill. SmackDown has really risen up to become a great show. The storylines have are more edgy. The matches are better. The quality is better. The pay-per-view quality is better. The characters are more intriguing. The authority figures are more tolerable authority figures than the ones on Raw. I've heard all of that. I've heard everything. Every excuse in the book. I've heard it already. And for a while, I agreed. But recently, all of those thoughts of SmackDown being the better show or the best show on WWE have really gone downhill. And I know that's too much for a lot of you to comprehend, but let's be completely honest here. Me personally, the last SmackDown pay-per-view that I thoroughly enjoyed was Backlash of last year. Not even the Backlash pay-per-view that took place last month. No, I'm talking about the one that took place in 2016. That is September. We're in June. And SmackDown has not impressed me with their pay-per-views. The storyline quality has gone downhill. The match quality is what it is, but you can't just rely on that. You need to rely on other stuff too. So while it is a better show than Raw, what's that really saying? And I say this all the time to people. SmackDown, yes, it's the better show, but is that really saying much? You're competing against Raw. For crying out loud, I can put on a pay-per-view, a SmackDown pay-per-view of all of the worst match concepts in WWE history with all of the worst wrestlers in WWE history, and it would still outperform Raw. Anything can outperform Raw at this point. But SmackDown's quality has gone downhill, and this pay-per-view showed it. There are two divisions that are completely directionless, and you can tell just by looking at them. And you have a main event scene that's really weak. I'm sorry, it really is. Money in the Bank 2017 was a disappointing show. A show that you really can't disappoint at because you have so many options and the possibilities are endless. And yet, just like most SmackDown pay-per-views, I tune in excited and wind up disappointed. No surprise there. And, it's really hard to find any positives on the show. So let's kick it off with one positive. This women's Money in the Bank ladder match. And it wasn't a positive for the match itself. It was a positive for the fact that they actually pulled the trigger and went with a women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I've been advocating for that for years. I don't know why the WWE decided to wait until 2017 to do that. Kudos to them. Applause to them. I think that the WWE picked the best 5 women they could to have a Money in the Bank match. I mean, you have Becky Lynch that can do some neat stuff. You have Charlotte that can do some good stuff. You have Carmella that can kind of work as that sneaky heel, that, the ultimate opportunist, I guess you could say, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I always liked the idea of putting a powerhouse or even 2 in a ladder match. I thought that Natalya and Tamina were the right 2 for that job. So WWE had the right women, and WWE decided to kick off the pay-per-view with that, which is another positive. And then the match happened. Match was not good by any stretch of the imagination. I know the women tried their hardest. I know, I get it, I respect it. But the match was not good. Quite frankly, I think a lot of those women that I mentioned earlier cannot really carry a match without botching repeatedly. See Charlotte. I really have no interest in Tamina. I have no interest in Natalya. At this point, my interest in Becky Lynch is incredibly low, and then Carmella's just kind of there. This match was kind of awkward. It was kind of bad, and the finish just made it even worse. And when I talked earlier about SmackDown's divisions being directionless, well, the women's division is certainly that. The women's division, when looking at it, the most over thing, the most over individual, in that SmackDown women's division is a man. Just think about that for a second. 2 years ago, or last year, we were all raving about how WWE has really taken off with their women's division. And this year, 2017, the most over part of SmackDown's women's division is a man. And I'm not talking about Charlotte. I'm talking about Ellsworth. Just let that sink in for a second. That the most over person in your SmackDown women's division is a man. A man. But give women the opportunity, right? Come on. How do you expect anybody to care about your women's division when you're trying to get James Ellsworth more over than any of the women on your roster? And then this finish happens. So much for having the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. No. Why have this be a special attraction? Why have this be something memorable or something really, really special? Why? When you can just throw this match completely under the bus in favor of another one on a random SmackDown that's probably going to be forgotten about in a matter of 3 weeks. Why bother building to the pay-per-view if when you get to the pay-per-view, you're just going to say, screw it, we're going to build to the SmackDown after the pay-per-view or the week after or whatever. Why bother? And you expect me to care about this division. Come on. And speaking of divisions I don't care about, this tag division. Freaking Usos versus the New Day. Once again, why bother building up to a pay-per-view just so that way you can have this match end in a screwy way, just so that way it can set up a rematch on an episode of SmackDown or at another throwaway pay-per-view like a Battleground? Why bother? The Usos and the New Day, two teams I really have no interest in. The New Day has really fallen off the radar. No surprise there, because it's the WWE and it's the New Day. If you put those two elements together, along with some other elements of Kofi, Big E, and Xavier individually, you'll know why they're not as over as they once were. That's the truth. I'm sorry. I know it's too much for a lot of you to handle. I get it. But that's my opinion. And then you have this women's title match. Naomi versus Lana. Since when is Lana even a wrestler? And honestly, when you look at this and Lana comes out, she barely even got a pop. You want to know when Lana got her best pops is when she was a valet. Maybe she should have stuck with that. And I'm not trying to be sexist. This is in no way, shape, or form me being sexist. So cross those thoughts out of your head. Please. I'm not sexist. The last thing I am is sexist. Please. I'm just saying, she was one of the most over people on the roster without having the need to wrestle. Now all of a sudden she's a wrestler and nobody cares about her. Connect the dots, if you will. Fill in the blanks. Lana doesn't work as a wrestler, so of course we're going to put her in a women's championship match on pay-per-view in her first ever match. Because that makes sense. I mean, come on. Who cares? Who cares? And this did nothing to get Naomi over. It did nothing to get people to care about Lana, and this match just went off like a fart in church. It was awkward, it was bad, and who cares? At this point, who cares? And then you get to, and speaking of who cares, the WWE Championship match, Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton. It's still astounding to me that Jinder Mahal is the WWE Champion, and I know it's still astounding to many of you as well. But I sensed a theme here, and kind of going back to that. I didn't mention this earlier, and I should have. There was a big theme throughout this entire pay-per-view that really caught my eye. This was good until the finish. The women's ladder match could have been something special had the finish been better. The tag team title match could have been something special had the finish been better. The women's championship match, the attempted cash-in by Carmella, even though we all knew that Carmella was going to have repercussions on SmackDown because of her actions, because of Ellsworth's actions. The finish of that, with her trying to cash in, could have been better. Well, in this match, WWE title match, Jinder Mahal and Randy Orton, just like all the other matches on this show, it was good until the finish. Jinder Mahal has proven that he can carry a world title match on a pay-per-view. It's only taken him 2 matches for that to be realized. But, why bother having a creative team or a writing team when we can just cut and paste Backlash and put it here at Money in the Bank? I mean, honestly, it was literally the same setup as Backlash. You couldn't have done anything else, anything different. Instead, it became one giant cluster. You get Randy Orton's father involved. I know it's his hometown, but you couldn't have done anything else. And again, you expect me to take these guys seriously? To take the world champion seriously? Honestly, not every heel needs to win in this way. And not every heel needs to win in this exact same way, in this exact same style, for 2 straight pay-per-views. I mean, come on. It was literally a cut and paste of Backlash. where the Singh brothers interfered, Orton attacked all of them, and then Orton gets back in the ring just to take a finisher, 1, 2, 3. Anyone else see a problem with that? I mean, honestly, so far I'm disappointed because, honestly, at this point, it's like whoever I listen to, I ultimately get disappointed when it comes to wrestling. I listen to my own instincts, I get disappointed. I listen to the smarks, I get disappointed. I listen to WWE, I get disappointed. At this point, I have no idea who the hell to listen to. I really don't. And then, Tyler Breeze, the Breezango versus the Ascension. Who cares? Should have been a pre-show match, but decided to put it on the main show for some reason. They needed a space filler, so I guess it filled that role well. Whatever, I don't care. Money in the Bank ladder match. I applaud the fact that they actually main evented with the match that fits the theme of the pay-per-view, so that's a positive note. That's a big positive on a night of very few positives. But here's another thing that irks me, and I know it irks a lot of people too. You got Shinsuke Nakamura, most over guy on the roster, so of course we're gonna attack him before the match even starts. We're going to have him not compete until the final 3 minutes of the match. Of course. Of course. WWE never ceases to amaze me. Of course, the most over guy on the roster competing in his first main event match on pay-per-view on the main roster. And we take him out before the match even starts, just so that way he can come back in the last 2 minutes and ultimately lose. Whatever the case may be. Going into this, I thought that there were 3 potential winners for this match. One of them was AJ Styles, one of them was Kevin Owens, and one of them was Baron Corbin. Styles, because he's clearly the best wrestler on the planet, that's not even a question. And he hasn't been in the world title picture in a while, so I guess this would be, Money in the Bank would be a perfect opportunity for him to get back in the picture. Kevin Owens, I don't really like him as U.S. champion. Of course, he has Styles to feud with now, but then after that, what do you do with him? Do you just have him drop the belt and go off to mediocrity? No. Instead, he should have won Money in the Bank here, so that way they can actually give him some sort of direction. But of course, that didn't happen either. The other option was Baron Corbin, because I thought that he had the most to gain from it. Meanwhile, I had no interest in seeing Nakamura win it because he just debuted. So, give him a couple months on the main roster before you put the Money in the Bank on him. That would have been fine. That's fine with me. No interest in Sami Zayn. Sorry, Uber driver does not impress me. No interest in Dolph Ziggler because if WWE doesn't care, why should I? So yeah, those 3 options I thought were the best 3 routes to go, and they ultimately went with one of them. They went with Baron Corbin. And yes, on a positive note, they went with Baron Corbin. On a negative note, this match was not good. This was one of the weaker Money in the Bank ladder matches I've ever seen. Wasn't WrestleMania 26 bad, but it was pretty bad. It wasn't that great. There weren't really a lot of standout moments or big spots or it didn't really feel like that the spot fest that it should be. And here's my thing. I'm not a big fan of spot fests when they're not needed. But Money in the Bank, they're needed. Because it's a ladder match and you have 6 wrestlers who can actually do some big spots with the ladders. They're competing in this match, and yet it just doesn't feel special at all. So, yeah, I don't like them when they're not needed. Here it was needed, and I didn't get that, so I was disappointed by that. But I wasn't disappointed with Corbin winning, because like I said, I feel like he has the most to gain from this. Now you can put the briefcase on him. actually maybe give him some clear direction. He's been directionless since WrestleMania of last year. So now, put him into the world title picture, start booking him as a main eventer, have him win the world title eventually, maybe even as close as SummerSlam, as soon as SummerSlam, excuse me. It's funny that I mentioned WrestleMania 26, and of course when Baron Corbin gets to the top of the ladder, he channels his inner Jack Swagger and takes about a minute or a minute and a half to unhook the damn briefcase. I'm not going to fault him because he still didn't take as long as Jack Swagger. But I applaud WWE for going with Baron Corbin and, in a way, kind of saving the night because Money in the Bank was just bad. It was just bad. And SmackDown, once again, put on a pay-per-view that ultimately disappointed for me. And that's ultimately how I'm going to remember Money in the Bank 2017.